The story begins with the academy's director who expressed his intense anger after reviewing the students' exam results. He threw the papers in the teacher's face, expressing his dismay at the low academic standards while the teacher remained silent, merely lowering his head in shame. The teacher's name is Kim Jun-young, a 31-year-old man. Kim works as a Korean language instructor at a local academy, but his duties are not limited to teaching, which he only does 2 or 3 times a week. His main responsibilities include driving a small bus to pick up children, printing documents, and performing various other miscellaneous tasks, like preparing coffee for his colleagues. His life wasn't always like this. In the past, specifically upon graduating from university, he was very popular thanks to his stylish appearance and charming personality, with younger girls eagerly congratulating him on his graduation. Now, however, he has become someone who is constantly berated by his director, who yells at him that a stylish appearance is useless, and that his results as a part-time teacher were poor due to his weak teaching ability and inability to get along with the parents. Despite feeling humiliated and wanting to quit, Kim finds himself forced to endure, especially with payday approaching and his desperate need for the money, so he decides he must persevere. He bows apologetically to his director, who ignores his apology and assigns him a new task, organizing a dinner for the teachers after work today. The director stresses that everyone must attend and that what happened last time when some were absent must not be repeated, ordering him to use all possible means to ensure their attendance, especially the female teachers, demanding he bring them even if he has to carry them himself. After the director leaves, his colleague Park Hoon approaches him and asks sarcastically if he's gotten himself into trouble again, then advises him to be careful since he doesn't have a strong educational or social background. Kim reveals that the teachers at the academy are divided into 2 teams, the teachers of Office 2 to which he belongs, and the teachers of Office 1 who have the full support of the parents. He explains that Park Hoon, whom he describes as a cunning fox, is the one who took the position in Office 1 that was supposed to be his when he joined the academy, and that this colleague always succeeds in provoking his anger in such situations. Park Hoon continues his mockery, hugging Kim and asking why he has such an annoyed expression, claiming he said nothing wrong and is only worried about him. Park Hoon continues to mock Kim, addressing him in a condescending tone, advising him to consider his words as just advice from a senior colleague and asking if he understands his feelings. While Kim looked at him with intense disgust, thinking to himself that Park had only joined the academy before him, suddenly Park Hoon spots a teacher named Yoon Seol and calls out to her loudly, then hurries over to tell her about the teacher's dinner happening today. Kim watches the situation from afar and thinks about teacher Yoon Seol, who belongs to Office 1 and is known as the queen of the academy. She is a famous teacher with stunning beauty and a model-like figure, and she graduated from the top university in Korea and also studied in the United States. Kim wonders why someone with such qualifications would work in a small academy like this, but at the same time, he feels grateful just to be in the same place as her. When Park reaches Yoon Seol, she coldly tells him to stop acting like they are close. Flustered, Park hesitantly replies yes or no. Am I acting like we're close? Then laughs, saying they are indeed close enough. Yoon Seol nods slightly towards Kim, who is watching them, which surprises and confuses him. Later at the teacher's dinner, the academy director calls out to everyone and asks them to join him without hesitation. A colleague sitting next to Kim expresses his frustration with this happening again, but urges Kim to return quickly, then starts talking about the director. The atmosphere was noisy, and the director was trying to force Kim to drink, while others commented that Kim doesn't like to refuse. The director orders more beer and offers to pour it for Kim himself amidst laughter and compliments from the other teachers who praise his sense of humor. After dinner, Kim stumbles out very drunk. While outside, he takes his wallet out of his pocket, and a card falls from it into a puddle of water. Kim sighs, complaining that his life isn't going well. He bends down to pick up the card. Kim is shocked and falls to the ground when something suddenly appears before him. A mysterious old man appears in front of him. He then smiles at Kim for no reason. Kim freezes in place from the shock. The old man tells Kim to be careful as he dropped his card. Kim wonders in a daze who this man is. The man extends his hand with the card towards Kim for him to take. Kim wonders to himself why the old man is extending his hand with so many cards in it, marveling at them. The old man asks Kim to look at the card he dropped. In a state of confusion from being drunk, Kim wonders if this man is a new kind of street vendor. Kim takes his card and apologizes to the man, saying he has no money to buy anything from him. The old man praises Kim, telling him he made a good and honest choice. Kim is puzzled and asks what choice he is talking about. The man tells him that he reminds him of a hardworking and honest young man who worked in carpentry, and at that moment the bus arrives. Kim excuses himself from the old man, saying he will leave first and advises him to go home too because it's late. As soon as Kim sits on the bus, he dozes off for a moment, then looks at the card in his hand, only to discover with a shock that he's holding another card that isn't his. Kim quickly looks out the window trying to call the man, but he realizes the man has disappeared. Kim spends the rest of the ride lost in thought, pondering what happened. The next day, Kim stands in the classroom suffering from a severe headache from the previous night's drinking, complaining about having a class on a day when there are usually no lessons. He thinks that he must have drunk too much yesterday as the effects of the alcohol haven't worn off yet. One of the female students calls out to him, then cunningly asks him to give them a break. Kim replies that the class just started 10 minutes ago and urges them to solve the problems quickly. The student rudely retorts that his teaching isn't usually great, but today it's worse than ever. Kim tries to be firm, reminding them they have an exam tomorrow and need to prepare. The student sarcastically asks what they need to know to solve the problems, then answers that everything he says is just showing off. The student adds that they aren't here for their grades, and that the other teachers gave up on them long ago, and all they need is to pass the time, wondering why he keeps bothering them. The other students agree, calling him inflexible, and one student asks if she can use her phone. The first student then promises him that she won't tell her mother anything if he lets them relax. Kim thinks to himself that the student's words aren't entirely wrong. This class includes students whose average score is 20 in all subjects, and they are called the Squad of 20. Kim focuses his thoughts on the student who was speaking, Kim Yuna. Kim sees Yuna as a single fish that muddies the whole water. The problem isn't just her bad grades. She ruins the entire classroom atmosphere, turning it into a swamp, and drags the rest of the students down to her low level. For this reason, no other academy could handle her and expelled her. But the current academy director accepted her and took responsibility for her. The reason being that Kim Yuna's father is a local council member and her mother runs about a dozen kindergartens in the city. And, of course, he was the one who bore the consequences as he was assigned to teach her class. Kim brings his focus back to the class and orders the students to stop making him laugh and to solve the problems in front of them quickly. But one of the students points out that these problems are not within the scope of their exam. Kim realizes his mistake. Each school has a different exam scope, and he forgot to print the correct questions for this class. He remarks with disapproval how he only just realized this after they had spent time solving them. Kim tells the students to continue solving while he goes to the office to get the correct papers. The students happily bid him farewell, telling him to take his time. In the office, Kim searches everywhere but can't find the papers. He remembers that because he woke up late due to last night's drinking, he forgot to bring the external hard drive containing the files. While searching his bag, he is surprised to find the USB flash drive the old man gave him the previous night. He connects it to the computer and is shocked to see its capacity is 10 terabytes, wondering about this advanced technology. When he opens the drive, he finds files neatly organized by subject. He clicks on the Korean language folder to find other folders with the names of all the middle schools. He selects one of the schools, and a huge number of files appear before him. He wonders in shock what all this is. He discovers that the drive contains files for all elementary and middle schools in South Korea, and inside them are all the exam questions. His shock increases when he realizes it contains not only this year's exams, but also the exams for the coming years. Driven by skepticism, he prints a Korean language exam paper from the previous semester for one of the schools and compares it with the original copy he has. He is stunned to find that they are perfectly identical without any error. Even the 19th question, for which 2 answers were accepted after student objections, was identical. His hand trembles as he places it on the papers, and he realizes the incredible truth. If this is real, then this drive contains all future exam questions. In the midst of his shock, the director suddenly appears behind him and asks him what he is doing here. Kim replies nervously that he has some things to finish. The director looks at him suspiciously and asks to see, then tells him that he just received a call from Kim Yuna's parents. The director asks Kim why Yuna's phone is connected to the internet while she's at the academy, when Kim seems not to understand. The director angrily explains that there is an app that allows parents to monitor their children, and that Kim Yuna is using her phone now, and her parents have received a notification. The director slams his fist on the table, reprimanding Kim and questioning his duty to look after the students and why he is not in his class right now. The The director shouts at him, asking if he's acting this way because he doesn't know who Kim Yuna's parents are and warns him that they will be completely finished the moment her parents file a complaint. The director explains that Yuna's father is already worried about her bad grades and that he told him to be prepared for the consequences if his daughter's grades don't improve in tomorrow's test. Then the director asks Kim if he realizes that the chance of Yuna's grades improving in tomorrow's test is very slim. The director sighs in frustration and orders Kim to leave. Kim is shocked by what he heard, and as he stands there, the director tells him to pack his things and leave, thereby firing him from his job. Kim stands in shock, thinking about all the pressure he has endured and how he is now being sacrificed just so the director can save face. He feels that, in the end, he was just a disposable pawn in this crisis. Kim remembers the 5 years he spent at this academy, how the director lured him with sweet words to join when the academy was in its early days and short staff, and how he is being cast aside so easily now. He feels a deep regret for all the effort he put in. But suddenly, his perspective changes, and he decides he will not leave this way. Kim turns to the director and proposes a condition, saying he will stay if Yuna's grades improve. The director is baffled by his words. Kim clarifies his question. What will he do if her grades improve? The director asks Kim what he means. Kim asks the director in a sharp tone what he will do if her grades actually improve. The director scoffs at the idea, considering it impossible, and asks him sarcastically if he's aiming to raise her grade from 20 to 25. He calls his words nonsense and orders him to leave, telling him he'll call later about his severance pay. But Kim insists and asks how many points Yuna needs to get tomorrow. The director tells him she must get 60 points, confirming that if she gets that score, her parents will have nothing to complain about. The director is surprised by this number but remains skeptical, saying it's impossible for her grades to improve that much in one day. He warns Kim not to do anything wrong, but he reluctantly agrees. Kim assures himself that 60 points will be enough. He sits at his desk, holding the mysterious card he got from the old man and thinks, this is impossible. But what if it's real? Kim decides to take this bet. He's getting fired either way, so it's better to try. He returns to the classroom to find that Kim Yuna is the only one left. Yuna is surprised and angrily asks why she's here while everyone else has left and tells him the class is over. Kim enthusiastically slaps the papers on the desk, then turns to Yuna and says firmly that he doesn't need anything else and invites her to try it right away. Yuna becomes tense, feeling she's been caught in something inescapable and that she's now forced to do it. Evening falls, and Kim continues to tutor Yuna privately. Yuna was extremely bored, doodling on her papers and constantly complaining. She asks her teacher if she can go home, wondering why she has to stay alone after everyone else is left. Kim calls her name, trying to get her attention, and asks her if she doesn't want to do well on the test. Yuna is annoyed by his question and resents why he's doing this to her. She puts her head on the table saying she can't succeed anyway, and all she wants is to go home. Kim tries to encourage her, assuring her that she can do it too, but she just lacks enthusiasm. He pulls up a chair and sits in front of her, then tries to motivate her by asking if there's anything she wants or would like to eat. She asks with interest, like what? He makes her a promise. If she gets 60 points on tomorrow's test, he will get her anything she wants. Yuna bursts out laughing, considering the idea of her getting 60 points ridiculous, and tells him to say something that makes sense. But Kim insists on his position and asks her to trust him and try just this once, assuring her she will get 60 points if she follows his instructions. Yuna looks at him seriously and asks if he trusts her. Kim is a bit surprised but replies yes, so she shouts enthusiastically, "Great." Her demeanor completely changes, and she becomes excited, saying she will try. She asks him if all she has to do is memorize the material he gives her, and reminds him of his promise that he would do anything she wants without hesitation. They seal their deal with a pinky promise. The next morning, the day of the test, while Kim is in his office, one of his colleagues calls him. Park Hoon appears holding a coffee and smiling sarcastically. He asks Kim if he has packed all his things, then reveals to the other colleagues that the director made a bet with Kim about Yuna getting 60 points. Kim accuses his colleague Park of being the one who spread the rumors as the office suddenly filled with employees from the main office. Park confirms they came to watch the show of Kim being fired. Meanwhile, another teacher jokes that he's worried about who will make his coffee if Kim leaves. Park replies with a sarcastic smile, advising Kim to pack his things carefully, so he doesn't forget anything because it would be embarrassing to come back later for something he forgot. Kim's thoughts returned to before the test where he felt he had the solution thanks to the USB drive and that he had managed to understand Yuna's mindset. His goal for the remaining 40 minutes was to implant the exam content into her head. His plan was to make her memorize the question numbers and their answers, but he doubted her ability to memorize. In addition, there was the fear that the drive was a fake, which would lead her to fail miserably. Therefore, he decided to make her focus on memorizing the difficult high-point questions that teachers usually use to adjust the average scores. As for the easier problems, he would guide her to help her solve them herself and avoid simple mistakes. Kim desperately hoped this plan would be enough for her to get 60 points. Back in the present, the director arrives at the office. He heads straight to Kim and asks if he still remembers their bet. Meanwhile, the other teachers were whispering, expressing their astonishment at the bet and the impossibility of raising a student like Yuna's score from 20 to 60 in one day. One of the female teachers recalled her failed experience teaching Yuna, confirming that she was a hopeless case. They all agreed that even the best private tutor in the country couldn't get her past 50 points. At that moment, Yuna arrives and looks inside the office. Park Hoon announces her arrival to the director. Yuna feels nervous when she finds everyone waiting for her result. Everyone goes to see her, and the director asks her if she did well on the exam and what score she expects. The director smiles mockingly at Kim, while Yuna lowers her head and starts to cry. When he sees her crying, the director considers the bet settled in his favor. He says coldly to Kim, "Thanks for your hard work," then turns away humming a victorious tune as he answers a call. Kim stands completely defeated, thinking to himself that, in the end, miracles don't happen for people like him. Kim wonders to himself if the flash drive was just a prank from someone. He tries to comfort Yuna as she cries, telling her not to worry and that the bet was illogical from the start. He asks her if she got a lower score than usual. Kim thinks that even if the exam questions were real, he had expected to lose due to Yuna's usual lack of focus. But at the same time, he felt proud and grateful that she trusted him and did her best for the first time. It was enough for him that she tried hard and had nothing to regret. Crying, Yuna tells him she had a wish she wanted to ask of him. Kim feels pity and tells her it's okay. And since she put in so much effort, he will grant her wish anyway. Suddenly, Yuna stops crying and a sly smile appears on her face. She asks, "Really?" Then reveals she got a 59 and that she only got a few answers wrong. Kim is completely shocked and asks her in amazement how many points she got. She replies with overwhelming joy that it was 59 points. Yuna expresses her regret for being so close to passing 60 points, but she made some mistakes on a few questions at the end. Then she excitedly tells him that all the answers he marked for her appeared on the exam and asks him if he has superpowers, expressing her immense admiration for him. At that moment, a colleague calls out to Kim, telling him that the director is looking for him urgently and that the situation in his office is chaotic. The scene shifts to the director's office where Kim is sitting in front of him. Kim tells the director that he won the bet and, as promised, he will arrange for his departure procedures immediately and calculate his severance pay. Kim is surprised and asks the director what he is talking about. The director backs down with a flattering smile and suggests they consider the bet a draw, but Kim refuses and insists that he will resign. Stressing that a deal is a deal, whether it's verbal or not, the director agrees on the importance of contracts. The director continues trying to convince him to stay, saying he would be very sad if he left after 5 years of good work. Kim inwardly scoffs at the statement and remembers all the bad things the director said about him in front of him and his colleagues. Then the director moves on to talk about Kim's salary, claiming he had been planning to increase it soon, but forgot due to his old age. Kim is amazed by the sudden offer, especially since his salary had been frozen for 3 years. He wonders to himself why the director is saying all this to him. Kim asks the director, "What about the bet you lost?" To which the director enthusiastically replies that he certainly deserves a raise. The director continues to flatter Kim, telling him it's a shame for a teacher with his skills to remain teaching only middle school. He urges him to work hard as a high school teacher, which Kim describes as the flower of the academy and the fiercest battlefield, where all teachers strive to prove themselves and become top instructors. Kim feels suspicious of this sudden change and asks himself the reason for this treatment. The director offers him an immediate transfer to the prestigious first teacher's room and promises to prepare a place for him right away. He also gives him full authority over his class, asking him to focus only on teaching and leave all other matters to the academy's management while stressing the need to continue working with his colleagues. Kim looks at the director's cunning smile and realizes he's planning something, feeling worried about this sudden, gentle approach. The director grabs Kim's hands and starts anxiously apologizing for his past behavior, promising to compensate him for everything and treat him better if he agrees to stay. Kim asks him to let go of his hands. As Kim leaves the director's office, he starts thinking about what the director said earlier. He remembered when the director sighed and then revealed he had just received a call from Yuna's parents. He asks Kim in a state of shock how he managed to raise Yuna's grades so spectacularly. The director explains that her parents were ecstatic as all the other teachers had lost hope in her and considered her a lost cause. So her grades increasing by 40 points suddenly was like a miracle to them. They promised that as long as Yuna's grades remained high until she graduated high school, they would support the academy. The director reminds Kim how influential Yuna's parents are in the area and that her sister also studies at the academy, emphasizing that the academy's reputation depends on the words of mothers. The director admits that he may have caused Kim trouble before, but he now promises to treat him as he deserves after he has proven his abilities. Later, Kim stands on the academy's rooftop holding the flash drive, thinking that something amazing has fallen into his hands. He realizes that with this drive, he can work at any academy he wants or even open his own private class and start a new life. But he decides it's still too early to be sure of the truth and that he needs to test the drive's credibility several more times. In the meantime, he decides to stay at the academy a while longer as conditions are now good with his increased salary and the director's submission to him. He also considers trying high school teaching at least once to build his resume, which will give him a strong boost in the future. Kim feels that his chance has finally come. Park Hoon approaches him and sarcastically asks how he feels about his life, wondering if Kim is really a great teacher or if Yuna was just lucky. Kim is annoyed by his words and thinks that Park has started bothering him again. Park expresses his astonishment that the worst student in the class, whom everyone had given up on, had suddenly achieved these grades, describing it as illogical. Then Park Hoon directly asks Kim if he cheated or taught Yuna a way to cheat on the exam. Kim gets angry and warns him to watch his words, insisting that the student did her best to get these grades. Then Kim thinks to himself that he was surprised too. True. He gave her some expected questions, but he never imagined that the student who couldn't sit at her desk for 5 minutes would be so focused. He didn't expect her to understand and memorize the content, but she did it, which made him proud and grateful to her. Park continues his mockery, saying that Kim's defense of his student is pathetic. Kim retorts, wondering what's so strange about a student getting a grade that matches her effort. Park comments mockingly that Yuna is the savior who saved Kim's career, so it's natural for him to defend her. Then Kim ends the conversation by saying they should stop talking about students behind their backs and go prepare for class. As he walks away, Park issues a final warning to Kim, saying that even if he managed to survive middle school, it won't be easy in high school. Kim silently agrees that high school won't be easy. Kim thinks that Park, despite everything, has a lot of experience teaching high school and for a moment considers asking for his advice since he'll be moving to that department soon. Kim turns back to Park, speaking to him in a sarcastic tone, pointing out that this is where all the kids learn, whether in middle or high school, then adds, as if thinking aloud, is there really something that distinguishes high school from others? Park scoffs at Kim, saying he's talking about things he knows nothing about. He explains that the preparation methods for middle and high school students are completely different. Kim mocks Park's words with clear sarcasm, making it clear he couldn't care less about what he says or thinks. Then, taking advantage of Kim's current confidence, Park challenges Kim to a new bet. Kim agrees to the challenge. Park suggests making more bets on the results of the upcoming high school exams, challenging Kim to use his excellent skills to predict their questions, and announces that he will bet next month's salary. Park smiles triumphantly and asks him where all that confidence went. With a confident smile, Kim raises the stakes of the challenge and suggests to Park that the bet should be the salary for the rest of the entire year. Later in the office, Kim sits in front of his computer and thinks about the mysterious flash drive, having noticed that after what happened with Yuna, a new locked folder on the drive had been opened. And indeed, upon checking the drive, he found that the previously locked folder named High School Korean Language Exam was now accessible. Kim's amazement grows as he had thought the drive only contained exam questions for elementary and middle school. But now he discovers there are folders for high school that include Korean, math, and English. Kim realizes this means the drive might not only contain all high school exam subjects, but perhaps also mock exams and maybe even the College Scholastic Ability Test (CSAT). Although he doesn't know how the locked folder was opened or how to open the next ones, he realizes one certain truth. He holds in his hands something that could change his life completely. Meanwhile, in a high school classroom, a top student is engrossed in solving a Korean language exam. She reflects on a poem about Chun-young, the girl who meets her love, Mungryong, in the spring of her youth. The student thinks about her own situation. She too is in the prime of her youth, burning her passion and energy in this academy day after day and hopes that her own Mangryang exists somewhere. But the first thing she faces is not love, but her prestigious academic standing that she built with her effort, being in the top 1% in the nationwide mock exams. Outside the classroom, Park Hoon blocks Kim's path and mockingly asks if he has prepared anything for the bet. He then tells him with a provocative smile that he has already informed the director about their bet. Park continues his mockery, acknowledging that he is the losing party in this bet due to the large difference in their salaries, but adds insolently that he will consider Kim's salary as just pocket money for himself. Park Hoon enters the classroom and introduces Kim Jun-young to the students. He explains to them that Kim, who is in charge of the middle school department, will be helping him today prepare for tomorrow's exam and that the class will be a joint session to review expected questions. The top student looks on in confusion, wondering to herself why a middle school teacher is here at this crucial time before the exam. Then Kim introduces himself to the students with a friendly smile, telling them he will take over teaching after Teacher Park's part is done and asks them to do their best. Upon hearing his name, Kim Jun-young, the student shows signs of recognition as if she knows him. The student remembers a short conversation she had with her mother in the morning, where she was rushing to get ready for the academy, while her mother urged her to eat a sandwich before leaving. The student Yuna's mother receives a call from her daughter after the exam, showing signs of shock as she asks if what she's telling her is really true. The mother is overjoyed as she congratulates her daughter on her wonderful performance, trying to hold back tears of joy and insisting that she is not crying. During the call, Yuna reveals to her mother in astonishment that every question teacher Kim Jun-young had chosen was actually on the exam paper. Back before the exam, Park distributes papers to the students in the class, asking them to take a copy and pass the rest. He then urges them to start solving the problems immediately. One of the female students complains, asking when they will finish all of this, and reminds them that they also have a Korean history exam tomorrow. Park Hoon intervenes and demands she stop complaining and start working because the exam is tomorrow. He then lectures the students, explaining that their peers are doing their best and that they must get good grades if they don't want to fall behind. He urges them to hurry up in solving the problems and reviewing their mistakes instead of complaining. He concludes his speech in a sharp tone, saying that anyone with a problem should not bother others and should go out to study Korean history on their own. The students feel frustrated by the number of exams. Yuna looks at the paper Kim provided with great surprise. While Kim stands at the back, he tells the students to try solving the questions and to ask for his help if they face difficulty. One student tells him they haven't learned how to solve such questions because their teacher usually doesn't create questions that might provoke objections. Kim is surprised by this information, and the student explains that their tests are either extremely difficult or ridiculously easy, so they have to focus on solving high-difficulty problems to ensure a good grade. He points to question 10 as an example, explaining that this type of question, which requires a lot of effort and is prone to objections, does not usually appear on their tests. Kim looks at the question on the exam paper. Yuna analyzes the question in her mind, assuring herself that this type of question never matches the style of her school's Korean language teacher. She realizes that the question, although its content is not difficult, is a short answer question, which makes it hard to grade and prone to objections. She thinks that her teacher would have likely chosen to ask a multiple choice question about the same content. Yuna wonders to herself how a middle school teacher could understand her school's exam style with such accuracy. Meanwhile, another student asks Kim if he can ignore his papers and work on the review provided by teacher Park Hoon. Kim nonchalantly agrees and tells him to do as he wishes, but he looks at him with a sly smile and thinks that he will regret his decision. On the day of the exam, the students sit in their halls to take their tests. During the test, the students are shocked and amazed as the questions Kim gave them were a perfect match for the exam questions. After time is up, Park Hoon approaches Kim with a sarcastic smile, asking him about the amount of his salary, as if preparing to celebrate his victory in the bet. Park continues to mock Kim, telling him he was thinking about how much he would deduct from his salary in installments. He adds mockingly that extra money is supposed to be spent all at once. Then he asks Kim if this is true while a sarcastic expression forms on his face. After that, Park suggests going to check on the students as it seems they have finished their test. As the top student, Yoon Seo, starts to exit the hall, Park Hoon calls out to her. He asks her how she did on the exam, but Yoon Seo looks extremely angry and crumples a paper in her hand. Then she heads straight towards them and confronts Kim angrily, demanding an explanation for what happened. Park asks her in confusion what is going on, so Yoon Seo shoves the paper into his hand. Park opens the paper and looks at it in indescribable shock, whispering that this is unbelievable. Then he turns to Kim with intense anger and yells at him, calling him a fraud and demanding to know what he did. Kim calmly replies and asks him to stop acting like an uneducated person. Park's anger intensifies, and he questions if Kim really thinks what happened is logical. With a sly smile, Kim reminds him that he was the one who said there would be no backing out or asking for favors later. Then he pushes Park's hand away and puts his hand on his shoulder, asking for his bank account number. In a triumphant tone, he tells him he will use the money well. Kim leaves the place, leaving behind a completely broken and devastated Park Hoon. Later, as Kim was packing his things in the office, Kim looks at the USB drive he took from the old man with a look of admiration and satisfaction, realizing it was the key that solved many of his past problems. One of his colleagues tells him that the director wants to see him in his office immediately and wonders why the director is calling for him again. On his way there, he spots Park Hoon in a state of fury. Kim feels scared of Park's angry glares. As Kim approaches the director's office, he hears the director's angry shouting as he berates someone inside, ordering them to get out and do what they were told. Immediately after, a man who appears to be a teacher exits the office with a sullen face. And upon seeing Kim, he calls his name, then leaves him and walks away with his head down. Kim enters the director's office to find that Park Hoon is also there. The director welcomes them with a smile and asks them to sit down. The director mentions that he heard about the bet between them, but adds with a laugh that it's not something he should interfere in. The director then says that he knows very well how much effort Park Hoon has put into the high school department. Then, in a serious tone, he suggests that Park take a break for a while in the middle school department because he has worked hard. Park Hoon is shocked by this decision and asks the director what he means. The director replies that he thinks Park has lost his touch a bit due to exhaustion. He adds that during his break, Kim Jun-young will take good care of his students. Park shouts the director's name in protest, but the director sternly orders him to lower his voice and to go and prepare for his class if he understood. After Park is kicked out of the office, Kim sees the teacher the director had previously berated. Kim offers him a cup of coffee, and the teacher thanks him. The teacher enthusiastically congratulates him on winning the bet against that bastard, amazed at what happened. Kim asks him worriedly if he's okay, and the teacher replies that he is and invites him for a drink later. Suddenly, the student Yoona bursts onto the scene, shouting Kim's name. She asks him in shock if it's true that he's moving to the high school department. Kim wonders to himself how she found out. Yoona continues to shout, questioning how this could happen, and begs him to stay in the middle school department. Kim thinks that in the past, he would have laughed at the situation, but he notices that Yoona has changed a lot since that day. Although she didn't suddenly become a model student or drastically improve her grades, he feels she has become more vibrant and that the look in her eyes has definitely changed. The teacher gestured to Kim, saying in a calm tone that Yoona seems genuinely upset. While he is lost in thought, Yoona surprises him, saying she's going to use the wish he promised her. Later in the evening, Kim sits with his fellow teachers at a dinner party. One colleague expresses his amazement that Kim has actually moved to the high school department. Another congratulates him on finally joining the prestigious first teacher's office. Kim replies with a humble smile, saying that's just how things worked out. The colleagues continue to congratulate Kim at the dinner party, with one telling him it's about time he moved to the high school department after 5 years of hard work. Another adds angrily that this should have happened sooner, expressing his frustration with the director who was holding him back because of his academic background. Then one of the teachers points to their colleague, Syak Ho, who graduated from the same university as Kim, but has held a position in the first teacher's office for a while. Suk Ho humbly replies that he was just lucky. Suk Ho asks Kim when he will be moving. Kim explains that he thought the move would be after the midterm exams, but the director ordered him to move immediately, so he expects to be in his new office the next day or the day after. A colleague comments that it will be a big transition, then asks Kim worriedly if he thinks Park Hoon will hand over his duties smoothly. Kim jokes that he'll be grateful as long as Park doesn't curse at him in front of the parents or throw chili powder on him. Suk-ho reassures him and promises to offer all the help he can. Then the conversation turns to a more serious tone as the teacher who was previously reprimanded asks Kim how he managed to achieve all of this. Kim is surprised by the question. The teacher points to his bet with Park Hoon and the amazing results of the student, Yoona. Suk adds that it seems very strange. Yoona's sudden rise from the bottom and Kim's ability, having only taught middle school, to accurately predict high school exam questions cannot be described as a miracle. Kim responds with a nervous laugh and Sayak-ho gives him a suspicious look, hinting that perhaps he knew the exam questions in advance. Tension fills the air for a moment before the teacher breaks it with a laugh, saying that this idea is illogical unless Kim had stolen the exam papers. Suk-ho adds that Kim is too cowardly to do something like that. The atmosphere returns to normal, and the teacher tells Kim that he is happy to see him finally succeed after 5 years of struggle. Kim smiles, touched by the teacher's words. The teacher said to Kim in a sad tone, if Kim and Suk-ho both go to the first teaching room, then who will he spend time with? The teacher joked that being among all these elite teachers makes him feel like he's talking to a wall, so Kim smiled and replied that the teacher is truly an eccentric person. The teacher begins to reminisce about their time together, how they used to come to this place daily to complain about the director's insults and the oppression from the other teachers, especially from the first teacher's office led by Park Hoon. Kim admits that without the teacher, he wouldn't have been able to endure it all. Kim believes the pub is the only place where he truly feels comfortable and safe. The teacher pointed out that they always came to that place after dinner parties, even in that state, to catch that frog, and Kim agreed with him. Then he remembers how they used to break soju bottles with a picture of a frog on them because it resembled the director in his eyes. After these memories, Kim returns to his serious demeanor, looks at the teacher, and asks him to tell him the truth. Kim asks the teacher what happened between him and the director earlier. In another scene, the director is having dinner with Park Hoon. The director looks grim and tells Park that he only came because of his persistence, but this meeting won't change anything. Park Hoon replies in a sycophantic tone, insisting that's not the case and that he just wanted to treat him to dinner as a sign of appreciation. He adds that they've known each other for years and there are many things he's grateful for, so he asks him not to feel embarrassed and to enjoy his time. The director reluctantly agrees. Park continues his flattery, telling the director that he knows making such decisions isn't easy and that he was surely under pressure from parents and teachers. He assures him that he trusts him completely and has no complaints about his decisions. But he adds, expressing his concern about Kim Jun-young's ability to manage the high school department well, Park brings up the issue of salary, saying that since Kim has been promoted, the director must have adjusted his salary accordingly as the commission system in the high school department will significantly affect his income. He slyly asks if Kim will get the same commission rate as him, which is 7-3. The director hesitantly replies that it's not quite like that because Kim has just started and the ratio will be 5-5. The director smiles and adds that a fixed 50% increase is not a small amount, while Park thinks to himself that this amount doesn't mean much. Then the director asks Park what point he is trying to make. Park replies that any investment must have a return and that he is worried about whether appointing Kim will bring real benefit to the academy. He explains that although luck may play a role in internal exams, the real goal of the high school department is the university entrance exam. He wonders aloud if the director really thinks a teacher with Kim's limited middle school experience can handle such a great responsibility. Park continues his argument, saying that his motivation is not just his desire to keep his position, but his concern for the well-being of the students and the academy. He reminds the director that students come to the academy with trust. So is it right to reward this trust by appointing a teacher with no proven track record or experience who has been inactive for 5 years? He warns him that he will not be able to handle the consequences if the university entrance exam results collapse, as people's trust in the academy will crumble and its reputation will be destroyed, and that this field is small and rumors about Kim have already started to spread, and this could lead to the destruction of the academy. The director shouts in anger, asking him what he suggests he do now. The director adds, reminding him of what he just said, that this field is small and rumors about Kim have already begun to spread. The director tells Park Hoon that he is in a position where he is forced to keep Kim, even if it costs him a lot of money. Park coldly suggests that they test whether Kim is capable of taking responsibility for the high school department. When the director asks him how to do that, Park suggests they make him take a trial for the university entrance exam using the upcoming mock exam in September. Meanwhile, the scene returns to Kim as he browses through a book and remembers the dinner party with his colleagues. Kim asks the previously reprimanded teacher again about the truth of what is happening. The teacher sighs and says that it seems to be the same as always and that he hasn't lived like this for just a few days. Then Kim tells him that he has been a burden to him for a long time, and it's time for the teacher to be a burden on him for a bit to balance things out. After a moment of silence, Kim urges him to speak frankly. The teacher begins to reveal his suffering hesitantly. He explains that it is normal for the director to bother teachers about students' grades, but he has started to interfere in the lessons blatantly recently. He mentions how the director humiliated him in front of all the students under the pretext of observing the class. Suk-ho comments in shock, wondering how the director could do that. The teacher adds that he can tolerate the director's usual behavior and even his embarrassment in front of the students, but he couldn't stand it when the director started interfering with his teaching style. The teacher explains that in mathematics, the basics are the most important. A solid foundation must be built for the students first before moving on to applied problems. But the director's approach ignores understanding and focuses only on solving a large number of problems categorized by type to narrow the scope. He admits that this method may raise grades in the short term and make things easier for the teacher, but it has a fatal flaw. This approach leads to the emergence of math quitters. The immense pressure this approach puts on students eventually makes them hate math and then give up on it. He points out that most students give up on math in the first year of high school, which is a critical transitional period. He emphasizes that if a solid foundation is built during this period, students will not give up on math easily as the years go by, but the director wants students to solve problems like machines immediately. The teacher admits that he can resign, but he cannot abandon his principles after 15 years in this field. He adds that he felt it was time to leave and told the director his decision, but the director threatened him, saying he couldn't escape after causing the students' grades to drop, and that if he left now, he wouldn't be able to work in any other academy. The teacher continues with regret, explaining that the director told him not to even think about leaving until the students' grades improved. Suk-ho wonders what the students' grades have to do with his colleague's departure. The teacher realizes that it's not really about the students' grades, but about the severance pay fund. He admits that the director doesn't want to pay him his dues. The teacher feels sad. After all the years of hard work, he feels that this situation is the result of everything, which makes him feel pathetic. He adds that it's impossible for his students' grades to suddenly improve and that leaving officially would be very difficult. Then he sighs and says he can't blame anyone for his own shortcomings. At this point, Kim looks at him seriously and tells him they have to try. Kim offers to help finish things and suggests they work together to raise the students' grades. He specifies that he means the first-year high school math class that his colleague is in charge of. The scene flashes back to explain the background of this class. Although it is classified as a high school class, the students' level is lower than that of middle school math. It is the math dropouts class. The teacher took over this class after gathering students who couldn't keep up with the lessons. But the parents, without considering the students' actual situation, began to pressure the academy for immediate improvements in grades. When some students started transferring to other academies, the director placed all the blame on the teacher. Despite all this, the teacher continued to teach with dedication and did his best, listening to each student's problems, and the students loved and respected him. Kim was at a library looking for teaching materials to help his colleague's class. A female employee at the library approaches him and offers her help. Kim asks if he is a teacher, and he replies in the affirmative. The employee expresses her surprise, saying she didn't think he was a student, but she also didn't expect him to have children. Just as she was about to ask him something else, the student Yuna suddenly appears and clings to Kim's arm, calling him Appa. Yuna sharply asks the employee who she is, and if she knows Kim. The employee is shocked and angry, as is Kim, who confusedly asks Yuna who she is. Kim tries to salvage the situation and explains to the employee that there is a misunderstanding, and it's not what she thinks, insisting that he is the student's teacher. But the employee calls him scum and leaves the place in disgust as Kim tries to stop her. Yuna comments sarcastically, saying that Kim Junyoung is more popular than she thought. Kim sits with the student Yuna in a coffee shop near the library, telling her with annoyance that because of her actions, he won't be able to visit that library again. As Yuna drinks from her cup, Kim tells her to enjoy it, and she enthusiastically replies that it's delicious. Yuna slyly asks him if the employee they met earlier is his type, then asks if teacher Yoon Seol is his type. Kim asks wearily if he can leave now that he's bought her the food he promised, and Yuna thanks him for the food. Yuna notices the math books Kim has placed on the table and asks him in surprise if he is also studying math. Kim replies indifferently, so what? She then enthusiastically asks when he will start teaching her. Then Yuna declares that she will use the wish he promised her and asks him to be her tutor for life. Kim laughs at her request and asks if she plans to study forever. After a moment of thought, Kim agrees to her request but specifies his promise by saying he will be responsible for her Korean language studies until she enters university. The scene shifts to the next day where Kim is sitting in the luxurious first teacher's office. He contemplates his new seat and thinks that this place is reserved only for the outstanding and recognized teachers at the academy. He notices that the office is equipped with the latest equipment, which cannot be compared to what is in the second teacher's office, and that the atmosphere here is completely different. Filled with the teacher's pride and self-esteem, he admits to himself as he sits there that at some point, getting this seat became his goal. Despite feeling proud, he also feels a strange emptiness creeping inside him. He wonders in confusion if everything he has done for the past 5 years, all this hard work was just to get this seat. While he is lost in his thoughts, 2 of his fellow teachers enter and welcome him, noting his early arrival. One of them jokes that he must have come early because he was so excited about moving to the new office. Kim calmly replies that this is his usual habit as he is used to coming in early. The teachers express their surprise and happiness at having Kim with them in the same office and praise him for being amazing in many ways. His colleague, Suk-ho, who graduated from the same university, approaches him and warmly welcomes him, calling him Sunbai Sr. Suk-ho tells him that he feels nostalgic now that Kim has moved and asks if he has finished moving all his things. Kim smiles and tells him that he hopes they will work well together. Suk-ho playfully suggests that since he joined this office before Kim should call him Sunbae. Kim pretends to be annoyed and jokingly scolds him for his audacity, while Park-hoon watches the situation from a distance with a stern expression. At that moment, the director enters the office, and the teachers stand up to greet him respectfully. The director approaches Kim and asks if he is comfortable in his new seat, to which Kim replies, yes. The director tells him to settle in and take on his new duties and informs him that starting next semester, he will be in charge of the high school department. Kim thanks him for his trust, but the director interjects and tells him that he must first apply for something. Kim asks in confusion what he is talking about, and the director explains that he means the upcoming mock exam in September. He adds that since Kim will be in charge of the high school department, it is natural for him to participate, stressing that all teachers in this department take this test, so he must make sure to register. The scene flashes back to the dinner between the director and Park-hoon, where Park was persuading the director of his idea. Park suggested they test whether appointing Kim to the high school department was a gamble worth taking. When the director asked him how to do that, Park pointed to an upcoming mock exam. The director was surprised when Park mentioned the mock exam. Park explained his plan, saying that although luck might play a role in internal school assessments, it was unlikely for someone who had only taught middle school for 5 years to perform well on a broader mock exam. He asserted that if Kim, the new head of the high school department, got a bad score, his reputation would be ruined in an instant. He added that this would be no one's fault, but would simply prove that Kim's abilities do not exceed this level, which would give the director a perfect excuse not to hand over the department, thus saving him from wasting money on him. Back in the present in the teacher's office, the director continues his conversation with Kim using the same logic as Park-hoon, but in a positive way. He tells him that taking this test is necessary for him to take charge of the department and that getting a good score will provide a strong foundation when talking to parents and will be greatly to his advantage. The director leaves after telling Kim that he has plenty of time to prepare well and that he looks forward to seeing good results. Kim is left alone with his thoughts, feeling anxious and thinking that the flash drive he has only contains internal exam questions, not mock exams, and he fears that this new challenge will bring him back to square one. Later, at a dinner party for the teachers of the first office, one of the teachers wonders if they should invite Kim Jun-young to their monthly gathering. Suk-ho agrees, pointing out that since Kim is now part of their office, it is natural for him to join them. But another teacher expresses concern that Kim's presence might make the situation awkward for Park-hoon. 2 female teachers comment that things have become a bit strange since Kim joined, and they feel there is a difference in level. One teacher wonders if the reason is his educational background. Then the other teacher turns to Suk-ho and asks if he and Kim graduated from the same university. The teachers express their astonishment that Kim managed to get a position in the first office directly with such a background. Suk-ho humbly replies that it's not like that and that the director just appreciated him. Another teacher intervenes saying that educational background has nothing to do with the position and points out that teacher Kim has an excellent background but is still in the second teacher's office. Then he wonders which university Park Hoon graduated from. Teacher Cho continues his speech at the dinner party, and Park Hoon looks at him with a sarcastic expression. Then Park asserts that a teacher's educational background has nothing to do with their ability to teach well. He then turns to Suk-ho for his opinion, putting him in an awkward position in front of the others. Meanwhile, the scene returns to Kim working alone in his office late at night. He thinks about his predicament, assuring himself that the flash drive he has does not contain mock exam questions, only internal exams. He feels that he might have to wait for another miracle. Then he starts to analyze the situation, realizing that the director had promised him a raise with a commission system after his promotion, but he probably found this too costly. Therefore, if Kim's scores on the mock exam are low, the director will use it as an excuse to adjust his salary, and Kim will have no right to object. Kim describes the director to himself as a petty toad who is always looking for ways to cut his meager salary. Kim realizes that they will not give him a raise this easily. Despite the situation, Kim decides he will not give up as there is still plenty of time, as the director said. He thinks that a miracle has already happened in his miserable life, and he decides to use this miracle as a starting point to create another one. He starts preparing immediately and decides that his first step will be to help the person who has clear answers to his problem, meaning his colleague, the math teacher. He sits in front of his computer and starts extracting all the high school math exam questions from the flash drive, organizing them by year. Then he starts working hard to hide this information within the book Special Lecture for the University Entrance Exam. He sees that his logical and organized approach to mathematics will make things simpler, as he will change the numbers and organize the solutions and answers to create a comprehensive study guide. Teacher Eun Sol suddenly appears and asks him if he hasn't finished his work yet. Kim replies nervously that he had some things to finish. She congratulates him on joining the first teacher's office and tells him that they will see each other often now. Kim thanks her nervously, but she interrupts him with a direct question about how he managed to achieve his recent successes. She explains that his bet with Park Hoon and the student Yoon Os results have become the talk of the academy these days. She adds that his ability to raise the grades of a student everyone had given up on is amazing and unprecedented in the academy's history, and even very strange. Then she leans towards him and asks with a suspicious tone if he had known the exam questions in advance somehow. She insists that he answer her how he did it. After a moment of silence and hesitation, Kim looks at her calmly and replies that he won the student's heart. Kim continues his conversation with teacher Yoon Seol, telling her with a smile that middle school exam questions are predictable. He explains that he gave the student his trust, and she simply responded to that trust. He adds that even if he had given her the answers, this result would not have been achieved if she had not memorized and understood them well. Kim remembers how he encouraged her, saying that she could do it, and asked her to try one last time. He concludes by stressing that the student reacted to his small gesture of trust as if she had been waiting for it. Yoon Seol listens to his explanation, then laughs, telling him he has a surprisingly gentle side. Then she looks at him seriously and confirms that he is truly amazing, clarifying that she is not mocking him but saying it sincerely. Before leaving, she mentions that she heard he will be taking the mock exam this time and offers him a book containing mock exams from the past 5 years, telling him it might help if he looks at it. Then she encourages him, saying he must succeed in achieving a miracle again and that she trusts him. Meanwhile, the teacher's dinner party ends, and Suk-ho puts a drunk teacher in a taxi. After the taxi leaves, Suk-ho remains standing alone in the street and spots Park Hoon standing nearby. Suk-ho asks Park Hoon to come in, and Park smiles sarcastically and calls him by his name. The next day, a conversation takes place in the troubled math teacher's class where students anxiously ask him if it's true that he is resigning and why. One of them wonders if the director is the reason. The teacher jokes with them, saying the reason is themselves as they are quick-witted in picking up rumors. Then he asks them to calm down and focus on solving the problems he gave them in preparation for tomorrow's exam. The scene flashes back to when Kim gave his colleague, the math teacher, the papers he had prepared, which contained past exam questions to help his students. Expresses his surprise and gratitude that Kim had put in so much effort to help him. Kim places the papers on the desk and tells his colleague that this is the most help he can offer and that the rest is up to him. As his task now is to inspire his students and motivate them to study this material, the teacher looks at the papers thoughtfully and comments to himself that Kim has become arrogant after his recent success. However, he admits that his colleague has made a real effort, and he feels admiration for a Korean language teacher trying to help with math, and a new look of determination appears on his face. Teacher Gum thinks about the papers Kim gave him and how he insisted when he presented them, so he decided to have the students try them since he had nothing to lose. After examining them, he became completely convinced of their value. He remembers Kim's advice to focus questions marked in red and to make sure to teach them to the students. The teacher's astonishment grows as it is hard to believe that these particular questions were chosen by Kim, who had only taught Korean language throughout his career, as this type of question could only be chosen by someone who fully understands the distinctive style of Seoul high school exams. With new determination, the teacher stands before his class and asks them if they really don't want him to leave. He answers himself that everyone wants to get good grades and tells them it's not easy. He explains that the lessons are constantly progressing, and without understanding the basics, the explanations become meaningless. As the problems get harder, they end up giving up. The teacher admits that he knows they are only attending because their mothers force them to, and tells them he understands how difficult it is for them, but he sees that their mere continuous attendance is something to be admired. The students are surprised by his unusually emotional tone. The teacher tells them he won't ask them to solve all the problems now and jokes that they probably wouldn't be able to solve them anyway. Instead, he announces that he will explain the solutions to the exercises he gave them, starting with the first problem. He asks them to focus during the explanation whether they understand or not. Then he holds up the few papers Kim had prepared and tells them that not much is required of them and that they just have to try this for once. He explains that all they have to do is focus on memorizing the solution steps he will explain to them, then concludes by saying that he believes in all of them. As the teacher begins his explanation, the director appears at the classroom door watching with a frown. The director storms into the classroom and angrily asks the teacher why he isn't letting the students solve the problems themselves. The teacher tries to explain that they need to understand some basics first, but the director interrupts him, shouting and reminding him that he ordered him to make them solve more problems to memorize them. He sarcastically asks if he doesn't understand his clear instructions. At that moment, the teacher turns and calmly confronts the director, telling him that he is the one who doesn't understand. He assures him that this is his class time and that he runs his class his own way. Then he firmly asks him not to disturb the class and to leave. The director stands completely shocked by this challenge and stammers that they will talk later before retreating from the classroom. The teacher returns to his students and asks them to focus again to follow the explanation of the problem. While teacher Guillaume was enthusiastically explaining the lesson to his attentive students, Kim was elsewhere, staying up all night studying hard for the mock exam. Kim sighs tiredly, thinking that it's difficult because he hasn't studied this way in a long time, but he is determined that he must succeed. At that moment, his phone rings, and he answers to find it's a call from an unknown number. After a short conversation, Kim asks the caller for their identity, then asks them to wait a moment and leaves the office to continue the call, leaving behind on the desk the mysterious card he took from the old man, which is glowing with a faint light, and a shadow of someone appears above it. The next day, teacher Guillaume sits in the second teacher's office packing his belongings into a cardboard box. He thinks that he has spent 3 years in this place, and although he has gotten rid of unnecessary things, he still has a lot of stuff. He cleans his desk thoroughly in anticipation of the new teacher who will use it, but he notices that the desk is so old that cleaning hasn't made much of a difference. As he is busy, 2 of his colleagues come to say goodbye after hearing the news of his sudden departure, expressing their regret and praising his hard work, and they agree to meet later. Just as he is about to leave, the director storms into the office, angrily waving teacher GM's resignation letter, and asks him about this madness. The director shouts at him, wondering where the confidence he showed yesterday has gone, and accuses him of planning to escape instead of taking responsibility. He then threatens him that if he leaves this way, he will not be able to give him his severance pay. Teacher Guillaume sighs coldly, which further angers the director, who scolds him for sighing, while he is demanding he fix the mess he caused. Before the director can finish his sentence, the teacher interrupts him and asks him to look over there. The teacher points to a group of his students who were standing proudly, holding up their exam papers showing high scores like 95, 97, and 98. The director is so shocked that he is speechless. Teacher Guillaume turns to him and calmly and confidently tells him that he should not disrespect people this way and that he will receive his full and accurate severance pay because that is his natural right. He then turns and leaves the academy while Kim watches him from afar with a satisfied smile on Guillaume's face. After the success of his plan and the triumphant departure of his colleague, Teacher Guillaume, from the academy, Kim thinks about his future with a confident smile. He realizes that everything starts from now and that his path to becoming the super teacher who masters all major subjects has already begun. Park watches Kim. Kim was thinking about the mysterious card that changed his life. The director enters his office the next day in a state of extreme anger and chugs an energy drink in one go. Park Hoon notices him and asks if he seems a bit strange. The director shouts at him, saying, "Of course, it's strange," and wonders how the grades of an entire class could rise all at once in such a spectacular way, especially since the credit for it goes to Teacher Guillaume. Park Hoon calmly replies, pointing out that this miracle achieved by Teacher Guillaume seems very similar to the 2 previous miracles that occurred. He then asks the director to think carefully about the person who has a close relationship with Teacher Guillaume. After a moment of thought, Park Hoon concludes that this person is Kim Jun-young. The director asks him if he is implying that Kim used dishonest methods, and Park replies in the affirmative, confirming that he has already discovered what this method is. Meanwhile, Kim is walking alone at night thinking about the fierce academic battle that students are fighting. He sees that in the classrooms where students are judged solely on their grades, there is always a back row for those who didn't want to be there, but gradually fell behind after losing their passion for studying and continued to struggle until they finally gave up. Kim realizes that he is not much different from these students. He graduated from a modest university, works as a teacher in a small academy, and in an unstable position that makes him vulnerable to being fired at any moment. He feels that his life has been left behind just like them and that he is always struggling in the back row while he is lost in these gloomy thoughts. He hears a strange sound and wonders if it's a cat. Suddenly, a girl wearing a hat appears behind him and places her hand on his shoulder, and Kim screams in terror. The girl in the hat smiles and points her finger at him, telling him that he has just uttered profanities. Kim recognizes her with a shock, discovering that she is his student, Kim Yuna. Yuna continues to mock him, marveling that he, Teacher Kim Jun-young, has just cursed at her. Kim asks her in confusion why she is out so late at night. Yuna replies with a smile as she waves a bag from a convenience store, explaining that she was on her way to the store and saw him walking alone. As they walk together, Yuna slyly comments that his curses are very sharp. Kim warns her that wandering around late is dangerous, but she ignores his concern. Kim insists that he will walk her home. Yuna continues to provoke him, calling him a coward who pretends to be strong. Kim denies feeling scared, and she replies that she saw and heard everything as he was cursing. After that, Kim asks Yuna about her dream in life. Yuna describes his question as cliché. He clarifies that he means her future goals and if they still write about these things in school. Yuna scoffs at the idea of future goals, so Kim asks her again if there is anything she would like to do when she grows up. She confidently replies that she can achieve her dream even now and doesn't need to become an adult first. When Kim curiously asks her what this dream is, she enthusiastically declares that she wants to become a YouTuber. Yuna explains that she created an account as a mukbang YouTuber specializing in eating, but she discovered that she had to eat large quantities while she can't eat more than 3 hamburgers. She adds that she filmed videos of herself eating candy or tanghulu, but the reactions were not good. She also tried secretly filming herself eating late at night, but she was caught and severely reprimanded. She admits that she knows she should stick to one type of content, but it's not easy. Then she suddenly remembers that she has another dream she wants to achieve when she grows up, which is to become a travel YouTuber, traveling the world, and earning money at the same time. She plans to take a solo trip around the world as soon as she becomes an adult, and she feels happy when she thinks about earning money while enjoying traveling as well. Yuna mentions that her sister's dream is completely different as she aspires to enter Seoul National University. Then she asks Kim why he is interested in such things and adds that when she looks at adults, she doesn't find many of them living their dreams. Then she asks him directly if his dream was to become a teacher, and he replies no. She assures him that he proves her point, then asks him about his real dream. Kim gets lost in his thoughts, thinking that words like dreams and goals have become mere illusions for someone like him who barely struggles to live day by day. As they walk away, Yuna continues to insistently ask him about the dream he once aspired to. The morning of the national mock exam for September arrives, and Kim Jun-young heads to the exam hall with the rest of the applicants. It is announced that the exam will begin at 8:40 a.m., and all candidates must enter by 8:10 a.m. The tension increases because this mock exam is held with the same schedule as the university entrance exam and is considered the most similar in trends and difficulty to the actual entrance exam for that year. Inside the hall, an atmosphere of intense tension prevails due to the importance of the test, but Kim smiles confidently as he prepares to start the exam. After the exam ends, news spreads about its unprecedented difficulty. Kim reads a news article stating that the mock exam was of record difficulty, and that the entrance exam in November is expected to be even more difficult to increase differentiation among top students. The article points out that the language section in particular was so difficult that only one student in the country got a perfect score. Meanwhile, in the teacher's room, which is bustling with whispers and anxiety, Kim receives a call from the director whose name appears on the phone as Fatso. Kim tells the director that he is in the teacher's room and will head to his office immediately. On his way, Kim walks through the academy's hallway towards the director's office and leaves the flash drive he took from the old man in his computer, then it disappears from its place moments later. At the same time, in the first teacher's office, Park Hoon arrives and greets everyone, commenting on the beautiful weather. He notices the tense atmosphere and asks why. One of his colleagues tells him that the mock exam was extremely difficult, describing it as absolute hell level. Park remembers his poor result on the mock exam. His colleague calmly replies, explaining that although the evaluation committee will take public opinion into account to adjust the difficulty of the final exam, they will not lower it significantly to maintain the credibility of the mock exams. Park adds that there is no need to worry, as the increased difficulty only means a stronger differentiation between students. But his colleague disagrees, saying that this logic doesn't apply when the questions are so difficult that both top and non-top students can't solve them, making differentiation meaningless. He tells him that this year's Korean language exam was insane to the point that the top student in the school, Kim Yoon-seo, only got a 93. Then he turns his attention to Park, pointing out that he seems calm, since he doesn't teach final year students. And another teacher sarcastically asks Park if he did well on the exam. The colleague presses further, reminding Park that they registered for the exam together and asks him for his result. Park tries to evade, claiming he had an upset stomach because he ate something bad. But another colleague exposes his lie, telling him that he saw his car in the exam hall parking lot yesterday. Park gets flustered and makes up a new story, claiming that as soon as he parked his car, his condition worsened so much that he went straight to the hospital. The colleague pretends to believe him and asks if he is okay now, and Park replies that he received an 4 drip and got some rest and feels better, blaming his recent poor health. The other colleague suddenly changes the subject and asks the others if they have heard the news. He then announces that teacher Kim Jun-young got a perfect score on this mock exam, which deeply shocks Park Hoon. At that moment, Kim Jun-young enters the teacher's room, and all eyes turn to him. His colleagues enthusiastically congratulate him on his perfect result, and one expresses his astonishment that the only person in the country to get a perfect score in Korean language is Kim. Kim thanks them humbly and sits at his desk, while Park Hoon watches him with an angry and hateful glare. Park's anger intensifies as he clenches his fist. As Kim sits in his seat, he feels something strange and suddenly turns with a sharp look, not finding the flash drive the old man gave him in the computer. The other teachers leave to go to their classes. One of them asks Park if he is coming, but he asks them to go ahead of him. After everyone leaves, Park empties his bag and continues to search everywhere for the flash drive. Kim stands in a state of shock when he receives a notification on his phone, then rushes out of the office. In another part of the office, Park stares with a sinister look, then angrily crumples a paper in his hand which appears to be his exam result sheet. He continues to crush the paper in his hand, then heads towards the trash can to throw it away. Someone else appears at the trash can after Park leaves. It was Yuna who took the paper and noticed that teacher Park's result was lower than her sister's. Park goes straight to the director's office and frantically asks if Kim's perfect score is real. And if he has verified it correctly, the old director assures him that the result is completely correct. The director asks Park if he has brought that thing. Park replies with a sly smile, and the director asks him about the dishonest method Kim used. In another scene, Kim stands facing his younger colleague, Suk-ho. Kim looks stunned as he gazes at Suk-ho, who is holding the glowing, mysterious black card. Suk-ho smiles and addresses Kim, saying, "Hey, Hyung." It looks like you have something good here, don't you?
Alright, that's the end of the story. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.